Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'll just wait a minute or so to let more people join. Okay, so we'll get started. So thank you for joining us and welcome to our virtual open week and today's session, Winning Negotiation Strategies with Stephen Boyle. My name is Suzanne Brady and I work in the business development team here at Smurfit Executive Development. So before we get started, I'm just going to introduce our school for anyone who may not have joined us before. So Smurfit Executive Development is part of the wider UCD Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School. I'm very pleased to have recently been announced as the #1 provider of open enrollment executive education in Ireland, as well as being ranked in the top 10 schools in the UK and Ireland. As well as our rankings, we enjoy the triple crown of accreditation and are also members of a global network of strategic alliances. And all of this is both testament to and contributes to the high quality learning experience you can expect from us here. So in today's session, we're going to explore one of our high impact short executive programs, Winning Negotiation Strategies, which takes place this autumn from the 4th to the 6th of November. We're delighted to welcome Programme Director Stephen Boyle, and we're also joined by a past participant, Sharon Coventry, who's Development Lead at Solace. So before I hand over, just to let you know that this webinar will be recorded and we'll share the session with you in the coming days. And also, if you have any questions, please feel free to pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen or by clicking on the More button. So with that, I'm delighted to hand over to Stephen.
Thank you, Suzanne, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. A little bit about myself. I have been working in this area for a pretty long time now. 25 years ago, I decided to specialize in negotiation, teaching, training, and consulting. I do teach in some other topics in the Smurfit Business School, but this is very much my core focus. Prior to that, I had been working first in various management consulting roles and then in change management in a large organization. And especially in that latter role, I had to draw on theories of and frameworks for negotiation to help middle and senior managers to be more effective in change where negotiation was a part of that. And I realized that the theories and frameworks and practices were really incredibly useful if you could figure out how to use them, which means that the individual has to get the framework, but also understand and manage themselves. And I've also found that I really enjoyed helping other people to get better at negotiation and saw lots and lots of really good results. Since then, I've worked across a very, very wide range of sectors, public sector, private sector, all sorts of industries, all sorts of business and organization. And I like to make this story come alive with real world examples and stories. This program is very, very practical. Yes, it delivers theories and frameworks, but only the stuff that's really going to work for you. And I deliver it in a way that helps you to see how to make all of this work. So what I want to do, maybe for the next 10 minutes or so, is provide you with, first of all, some essential practical details, then let you know whether this program might be suitable for you, depending on what you're thinking about, what you see as negotiation in your role, and give you a little bit of detail in what you'll learn and maybe a little taste of some of the challenges and opportunities for negotiators. Suzanne just mentioned the starting dates of the program. The program runs, it's quite intensive, and it's run in a practical way. It runs until 4 p.m. each day, so that participants do have a chance to just about keep up with essential email calls and so on. But it's interactive. It's an in-person program over the 3 days, and you get a certificate of completion at the end of the program. The nature of the program is, I mentioned it's interactive. It's very immersive and enjoyable. So we use negotiation role play. And occasionally I come across people who feel a bit anxious about that idea. But I've never really met people who've done the role plays who haven't really enjoyed them and found them a tremendous way to learn. Negotiation role play has also been proven to be one of the best ways, really the best way to train negotiators to get better at what they do. Not least because we get a lot of insight from feedback discussions that you just couldn't have after real world negotiations because you don't know enough about what happened on the other side of the deal, the discussion, the negotiation. This is also paired, as I mentioned, with a very wide range of real world examples. So it's very memorable, it's very enjoyable. Participants will take away lots and lots of insights. And very importantly, one of the things I stress during the program is to share your own experiences and to ask questions about your own situations. And participants always do that. And not only learn from each other, but I won't know your business nearly as well as you do, but I know a lot about negotiation, and I'll be able to give you practical ideas and suggestions for the challenges that you face in your organization when it comes to negotiation. So, who is this program for? Probably, I would say, a very, very wide range of people. We could almost say that if you have to interact with other people in your organization, you are negotiating in a business sense. In particular, the more obvious cases would be sales or business development and purchasing, business owners, but also middle or senior managers who advocate at board level, anyone at a lower level who has to advocate with their managers or with their colleagues or with their subordinates in the organization. So anyone for whom internal negotiations are important. So if your idea of negotiation is, well, it's only really people who are negotiating contracts, this goes a lot broader than that. And if you're wondering why to do it, the chances are you are in the box of negotiators who are leaving value on the table. This is what some research says about how many negotiators are leaving value on the table. Although in practice, I find when I'm putting people to the test in role plays, in exercises, and so on, I'd say it's probably closer to 98, 99% of negotiators are leaving reasonably significant amounts of value on the table. Now, why is that? Well, it's for a variety of reasons we'll get into it in a moment. But let's just say for now that many negotiators who are leaving value on the table are very experienced. And they largely, that experience, they're largely harnessing and doing a lot of the right things. But just by doing a few of the wrong things, you could be leaving quite a lot of value on the table, which can mean either you're giving too much value to the other side, or indeed there could have been more value for both. And that's what we really mean when we talk about leaving value on the table or creating value in your negotiation. Finding value, expanding the pie is an analogy that's often used. One of the things that I mentioned is we acquire frameworks. Even really good, experienced negotiators I've met can benefit from having a framework. This is a quite typical statement from, let's say, a program participant who might have a reasonable degree of experience, that they might feel comfortable enough and confident when they're negotiating, but they don't have a framework. They couldn't explain, write down, or give to someone else what their framework is. Now, if you get a framework from me, you'll likely find that if you're not a very confident or strong negotiator, there are a lot of elements of it you can put into practice straight away and benefit from doing. But even if you're a very good negotiator, having a framework will help you to validate what you're doing, maybe see ways in which you could do it even better, and know when you should be doing it and when you should not be doing it. Because we'll see that there are a few different kinds of negotiation situation that require different strategies. So while we only need a couple of different frameworks, we need to know when to use which frameworks. Back to this challenge of negotiators leaving value on the table. If you think of any negotiation, virtually any negotiation you've ever been in, it's highly likely that you haven't had the learning opportunity that's provided by getting feedback. Your counterparts, whether they're customers or suppliers, or maybe even internal colleagues, don't typically tell you how much they could have accepted, how much they could have given you, what mistakes you made. Additionally, really effective negotiators prepare for negotiations, at least the important ones. And those who get into the habit of preparation, if they occasionally come to a negotiation where there's no time for preparation, it's immediate, they have a framework in their mind for what they need to be thinking about, which comes from the habit of preparing. So a lack of preparation or even gaps in preparation can be a problem. I've come across lots of seasoned negotiators who put significant amounts of preparation into important negotiations, but they're overlooking certain important steps, or they're doing things in the wrong sequence, or they're muddling up different aspects of preparation. So having a framework really makes you a lot stronger. And the framework extends to what strategies work in negotiation, what's best practice, how does it work, and why. And you get to build your confidence in that framework through the kind of practice that we'll have through role play and the debriefing discussion around that. To give you just a little bit of a taste for what we're talking about when we talk about frameworks here, I'm going to give you a very broad overview of something we'd go into much more detail in the course. So here are a few little tips that you're going to benefit from, you'll take away from this webinar. What kind of preparation should people be doing? In other words, do you have a plan when you negotiate? By the way, negotiation planning doesn't mean you have to set aside hours or days. Occasionally, for a major negotiation, organizations would be well advised to set aside hours or days. But sometimes the bare bones of a good negotiation plan could be prepared in a matter of 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And the payoff for that could be very significant for that 10 or 15 minutes. One of the things to think about in negotiation planning is, are you clear about your goals and are you being ambitious about your goals? Ambition is an absolutely essential driving force in negotiations. Time and again, I find one of the reasons people leave value on the table in negotiations is they weren't ambitious enough, or they weren't clear on what their priorities are. They have a list of things that they want or issues that they negotiate about, but they haven't got a sense of which are the higher, middling, and lower priorities across those. So the result is you might come out with a sort of medley of results in negotiation, and because you didn't articulate your priorities, how do you really know if that's a good result? We'll also be exploring a lot of things that negotiators can do to enhance their power before sitting down at the negotiation table. Power could be defined as your ability to get what you want, your ability to get the results that you need in the negotiation. Frequently, negotiators feel either I'm powerful and this is going to be easy, I don't need any framework, which is often a mistake, because either people who are very powerful often misuse their power, or their power gets shifted at the negotiation table. Or more often, I encounter people who feel I don't have enough power. And we realize that there's an awful lot we can do to increase our power before we ever get to the negotiation table. And by the way, there are things we can do to enhance our power at the negotiation table. Another important aspect of negotiation planning or forethought is gaining insights into what matters to the other side, what their options are, what kind of power do they have, and what their plan might be. Then in terms of negotiation strategy, what kind of things will you learn? Well, for starters, I did mention that different kinds of negotiation situation require different strategies. And very early in the program, you'll learn to diagnose the kind of negotiation that you face at any given time, so that you're using the right toolkit of negotiation strategies. And through practice and through relating the program to your own practices and your own experience, you will become comfortable with applying those strategies. Something else I like to tell people at the start of a program is that strategy is a big part of negotiation. There are really good frameworks and strategies that really work against a very wide range of opponents in a very wide range of settings. Probably it's the biggest key. But another key is recognizing, being honest, and saying that negotiation isn't a purely rational process, and recognizing that people are an important part of that, managing people. And the most important aspect of that, and it stands next in importance to strategy, is understanding and managing ourselves. That's around things like developing our comfort, using our interpersonal skills effectively in negotiation. And the other aspect of people is managing the other side. And virtually always, If we have the right strategies and we manage ourselves, it becomes reasonably easy and possible to manage the other side. What will you get out of this program if you join us on this journey? You will get those insights into your own strengths and weaknesses, recognizing what you should be doing more of and what practices you should change. You'll get a framework for being well prepared and using the right strategy, in particular, for creating value in your negotiations, for ensuring that the pie is enlarged wherever possible, and for ensuring that you're getting a decent slice of the pie, that you're not leaving too much on the table to the other side. Alongside this, we'll explore soft skills for handling people problems and enhancing relationships. Um, we're joined now in the webinar by Sharon Coventry, who's a past participant in the program. Sharon, anything I've said so far that would resonate with your own experience in the program?
Absolutely. I was actually just listening to you, and I haven't spoken to you, Stephen, since the course. And
Oh,
everything that you were talking about was literally what I'd been thinking about this morning. There were so many aspects, like, definitely uncovering my own blind spots, preconceptions about negotiations. I would have been someone who would have relied heavily on instinct as opposed to planning kind of what I was going to do within negotiations because I'd be very much a people person and empathy and all those kind of things. Whereas having an actual proper strategy going into the negotiations was something I probably hadn't committed to as much. Another key thing that I found really, really valuable from the course was the value creation. And even though I'm sure there are other people on the call probably nodding when you were saying the different things going through the slides, going, yeah, 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 I get that, I agree with that. It's actually not until you're in the room doing it, kind of. And I'm someone who doesn't kind of, I hear the role play and I nearly run out the door, And but it was really learning through that, trying to create extra value in the different scenarios and that low cost, high value, those things that you can give that you don't realize are actually very important to the other side. And that was something I had never really thought about. Often negotiations, we go for the big main piece that we think that we're going to have to fight over. And I have so many books about kind of never split the difference and, all very hard-nosed kind of strategies at times. And, but actually expanding out what is actually in play and then kind of giving where things are very easy for you to give without weakening your own position and, creating kind of a better atmosphere. There's so many things. I could go on, but it is
That's really
lunchtime.
that's really nice to hear, Sharon. It's really good,
Mm.
and it's not at all atypical of what people would say about this program. Time and again, participants say, "Wow, I got a lot out of this," or "I got a lot of that." I have one other specific question for you before we
Mhm.
throw out to questions and answers, which was something kind of in the green room before we got started on this webinar. You observed that you had wondered before you took the program how much of it would be relevant to you particularly because I think negotiation is something that people in the private sector they really get. Oh, this is really important for competitiveness and performance and so on.
Mhm.
But you work in the public sector, and you did wonder. Well, you felt this is a worthwhile program for me, but I wonder how applicable it will be. Having done the program, what would you say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was a genuine concern. And I was quite skeptical, to be honest with you, going in. And I remember going up to you on the first morning and saying, well, Stephen, I'm in the public sector, so we're a bit different. It's not about the money. It's not about kind of, getting the best financial deal. But we do negotiate. And I was concerned because obviously, even coming into the course, I was saying, oh God, these will be all people who'll be sales and target driven and about those negotiations. So I'm just going to sit back and watch. That ended up not being the case at all. And it was great. And all credit to yourself, Stephen, because you're able to draw relevant examples to everyone in the room. You took on board where everyone was coming from. And that whole thing kind of, it wasn't about, rarely, even in the role plays, the exercise that we were doing, rarely was it about money. It was about the other kind of 10 other things that were also going on within the negotiations. So for me, it absolutely, any fears that I had that this was aimed more private sector, where it's all about the bottom line, kind of completely wasn't. And I was delighted because I thought, oh God, I'm going to be surrounded by all these kind of sales kind of hungry kind of people, and that's the way that the role plays were going to go. But it turned out
Yeah. Yeah.
so different,
And
thankfully.
absolutely, it is also, very applicable to
Mm.
those in that
Oh yeah,
sector as
absolutely.
well.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that the frameworks are very widely applicable. It's about understanding them and then figure out, now I see how to use them.
Hmm.
Suzanne, you might like to rejoin us and let us know if we've got any interesting questions have come up.
Yes, hello. Yeah, thank you very much, Stephen. That was really informative. And Sharon, great to hear your experiences on the program as well. Just one sort of a quick question. You mentioned how it is quite an intensive program, Stephen, over the course of 3 days. And we're just wondering what's the workload like across those 3 days? Is there any pre-reading or assignments, for example?
Okay, there is minimal pre-reading. There's one case study that we ask participants to read in advance, but I know that participants don't always read it in advance because I sometimes see people coming in, they're having breakfast, they're sitting down, or they're at their coffee break or lunch break, and they'll read it then, and that's
Yeah,
absolutely fine.
yeah.
And also, there's no homework or assignments. This is not, while we provide you with a certificate of completion, this is a bit different to, say, taking one of our diploma programs where you're earning towards a diploma or maybe even ultimately a master's degree. This is a standalone course. It's non-accredited, so you get a certificate of completion, but you can't say you got a diploma. The upside of that is it's those 3 intensive days, and you've completed it and you've learned. We also have, once a year, we run this a couple of times a year, and once a year we have a short follow-up lunchtime webinar, where participants might like to ask me questions or talk about their experiences since
Great.
the program, so that afterwards there's a touch point there for people to think about, okay, I now have this situation or that challenge. How do I do this? How do I apply the strategies?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And just another question is Sharon sort of alluded to this a little bit in her case as well, but we're just wondering what's the biggest change you would see in leaders who have completed the program? Is there anything you can specifically identify as they go back into the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, One of them is a recognition of the value of having a plan. That's almost always the first thing that people say to me. I'm frequently running into people who, this program's been running for a very long time, and I sometimes come across people who did it years ago, and I'm impressed by how much they remember. And they say, "Well, I remember it because I'm doing it all the time. I use the framework or the frameworks because there are different frameworks. How to plan, what strategies to use." Um, and also those who are pretty strong at negotiation, they often feed back about the value of validating some of the things that they do and also recognizing where they can improve and where they need to be flexible.
Mm. Great, thank you. That's all our questions. So we might give people back the rest of the lunch break to enjoy the sunshine. So that just leaves me to say thank you so much for leading the session, Stephen, and also to Sharon for joining us. We'll be sharing the webinar recording, as I mentioned earlier, and program details with everyone who attended. And we hope that we can welcome some of you to Smurfit on campus for the program from the 4th to the 6th to November in the autumn. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.